Okay, we can get started. I think it's 7 o'clock. Thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Bob Reinhardt. I'm the vice chair. Carol Snow is the chair, is not here today. She has drafted some new words to introduce the meetings. I just want to read what she wrote, just to kick things off, the new way of starting the off from the last one. So, the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of June 6, 2024, please come to order. We have 3 public
Excuse
hearings.
me, Bob. We really need to speak up because of the fans. If not, I'll have to turn one off.
Sure.
Okay, I can talk a little loud.
Yeah, and just kind of
Okay.
direct that.
Oh, no, there you go.
Bob,
I know,
Microphone?
no, I hate
you've
microphones.
been wanting to talk louder anyway this meeting.
I'm usually loud enough, but that's okay, we'll work it out. Okay, we have 3 public hearings. If you guys can't hear me online, let us know. We have 3 public hearings scheduled for this evening, so I want to take a few minutes to review the process for public hearings and the current hybrid format of our meetings. During the public hearing, I insist that we treat each other respectfully, do not interrupt, and follow the required structure of the meeting. Please silence all cell phones. Everyone will be given a fair opportunity to hear, review, submit, and comment on the testimony and evidence the commission will use to render a decision. All speakers must be recognized by the chair before being allowed to speak. The following order must be followed. First, the applicant will be invited to present the application, explaining to the commission and others present what is being requested. The applicant or staff will share all application materials on the screen as needed. You all pretty much know this, but I'll make sure everyone in the room is at the same level. Comments of town agencies will then be read for each application if there are any. Next, there will be clarifying questions from the commissioners who will be recognized by the chair before they speak. Then there will be an opportunity for clarifying questions and comments from attendees who will raise their hands and be recognized by the chair before they speak. For Zoom attendees, please raise your hand through the Zoom platform and wait to be called on and unmuted. As a public hearing must be recorded, attendees will state their names and addresses before asking their question or making statements. Finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to address any questions or concerns raised by the public or commissioners and must be given the opportunity to speak again without interruption. Once the public hearing is closed, the applicant is free to leave or remain for the balance of the regular meeting, during which the commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as to the decision of this commission and has a right to appeal to the Superior Court if desired. Decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Land Use Department at 203-245-5631 after 9 a.m. All actions taken tonight by the commission will be by roll call. All commissioners and staff will identify themselves for the record before speaking. See this evening are Mike Bugda, Jeff Downs, John Duza, John Morgan, Bob O'Connor, and myself. Aaron Maddox, the town planner, is joining us. This meeting is live streamed on YouTube and will be made available on the town website for view. The town planner will now read the legal notice.
Notice is hereby given that the Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, June 6, 2024, beginning at 7 p.m. in Meeting Room A, Town Campus, 8 Campus Drive, Madison, Connecticut, 06443. This is a hybrid meeting and attendees may also join via Zoom webinar through either the webinar link or call-in information below. Webinar ID is 915-8196-6735. The passcode is 452138. Call-in number is 1-646-558-8656. The following application will be heard. Number 24-13, 27 Green Hill Place and 43 Boston Post Road, map 44, lots 4 and 16, zone R2. Applicant owner is Bruce C. Beebe. Petition for zone boundary change to amend the Madison zoning map designation from R2 residential to commercial C district. Copies of this application are available for inspection in the land use office. Further details on how to participate in the webinar are posted on the Town of Madison website, www.madisonct.org. All written correspondence can be submitted to the Land Use Department via email to landuse@madisonct.org. Dial 203-245-5631 for assistance. Dated at Madison, Connecticut, this 14th day of May, 2024. Carol Snow, Chair. Published once in the source on May 23rd, 2024, and once on May 30th, 2024.
I'm going to rely heavily on you to help make sure I'm doing this the right way, properly, in full sense. You will. So we can start by opening up continuing the first public hearing, 2406.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Jeffrey Beatty for the applicant, 20 Water Street, Guilford, Connecticut is my address. Before I get started, I sent a letter to the commission yesterday. You may not have all had an opportunity to read it, so I'm just going to hand out copies. I'm not going to read the entire letter to you. It's 6 pages long, but I am going to touch on the highlights. So this letter is our attempt to address some of the questions and comments that we received at last month's meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission with regards to our application. As you may recall, this is the properties at 1339 and 1341 Boston Post Road, and we're seeking special exception permits to allow the construction of 2 mixed-use buildings at the property, housing commercial units on the first floor of the buildings and residential dwelling units on the second and third floors. Among the questions that were discussed in some detail at the last meeting were the special exception with regard to building height. We had initially, when we submitted our application, we're requesting a 45-foot tall building. The C zone where the property is located permits a 30-foot rather building, with this commission having the discretion to approve up to a 45-foot tall building. We've altered the height of the building to 37 feet. And I wanted, in my letter, I described why the 37-foot height is necessary. Aaron, I don't know if you have the plans from John Matthews that show it's kind of a cross section of the building, showing the various floors and height of the building. You may recall that what we're proposing is a mansard roof with the mechanicals and quote unquote a bathtub on the top of the building, below the part that'd be visible from the neighbors or from the street or from the property for that matter.
Section?
Nope, I think it's I'll show you.
Not in your full set.
This is.
Okay, if you call up that other one, I may be able to work with the one you just had.
I'll back to you. Some of them came in as a set. John, and some came in individually.
Okay.
From point 1. I thought it was the bottom.
Has his name on it.
the one you had initially, I can work with that.
Is it this corner?
Yes. Yep, there it is. Thank you very much. That's okay.
Just not visible. It was the right.
So starting at the ground floor right here, the ceiling height for the first floor commercial units is 10 feet high. Then we've got 2 feet for support and conduits within the floor, within the ceiling of the first floor and the floor of the second floor. A 9-foot high ceiling on the second floor, a 1 foot 6 inch area for support and conduits between the first and second floor, then a 9-foot high ceiling for the third floor dwelling units. And then these two in the aggregate come to 5 feet to the top of the roof. So that's how you get if you add these up, 10 plus 9 is 19. 10 plus 2 is 12, plus 9 is 21, plus 1 foot 6 inches is 22.5 feet. Then we have 9 feet here, and then 2 feet, and then another 3 feet. That gets you to the 37-foot height that we're looking for. In my letter, and the proposal is that we don't believe that buildings are going to be overwhelming, and the reason we've proposed it this way is that the market for commercial space in particular is strongest for the first floor. They want retail access, visibility. The footprints of the two buildings are limited to what we've proposed, and that's the maximum amount of first floor commercial space we could get. If we were to use 1 foot, the second floor for residential only or commercial, you're talking about office space, and there's a greater demand right now in the town. We think going forward for residential space on the second floor than there is for commercial space. We'd be unlikely to get retail uses on the second floor if it were commercial. And so for maximum economic viability of the project, we feel that residential dwelling units on the second and third floor make the most sense to generate the revenue needed to support the building going forward for maintenance, upkeep. There's a parking lot we've got to maintain, all that. So that's the concept as to why it's just the one level of commercial. And although if we were to go to 37 feet, the ceilings would be lower, and that would make them less desirable, in our opinion, for the people out there looking to rent 7-foot dwelling unit. It will feel smaller than the 9-foot ceiling. So that's how we arrived at the 7-foot.
That was an aesthetics decision. It was an aesthetics decision.
Well, it's an aesthetics decision in the sense that the people who are going to live here are going to want to feel comfortable in the place they're living. We believe they'd be more comfortable in a 9-foot in a dwelling unit with a 9-foot high ceiling than in a 7-foot ceiling.
And you got to the new height level by eliminating the attic wall space.
Exactly right. The attic crawl space has been eliminated, and we've reduced a little bit the areas between the two floors. So that gets us down to the 37-foot height. And again, that allows us to put the mechanicals on the roof out of sight within this 5-foot height of the mansard roof. So they wouldn't be on the ground surrounding the buildings, as would otherwise be the case. We did ask point one to prepare some renderings, which are on the system, but this is the view from the post road at the 37-foot height for the proposed buildings. And you can see that it's in character with the existing building at 1343. In fact, the peaks of these two buildings are lower than the cupola on the top of 1343. So we think that a 37-foot height for these two buildings wouldn't be overwhelming or out of character with the properties that are there on the site now, particularly as you can see them from the post road. To the rear, and we've got Mr. Cunningham here to speak about the landscape, but with the trees that we're intending to plant here along the post road and here set back a little bit, again, that acts as a buffer for the public driving by or walking across the other side, walking down the road on the Boston Post Road. Thanks. This is the view from Cottage Road, from behind the units. This is from the western side of Cottage Road, looking east towards Clinton. most of these trees shown in this rendering are already there. And our plan is to leave them there and not remove them. When this plan was approved in 2004, originally, there was a note that invasive species would be removed, and that's still the intent, but to replace those invasive species with native tall trees to grow in to, again, obscure the view of these buildings from public on Cottage Road. Of particular interest might be, this is the cupola for 1343 already there. And you can see that the trees that are already along Cottage Road, some of these are drawn in. It's not, all these trees are not there, but they obscure most of the size of the building. And we'd expect that that would be the same for the building at 1341, which would be closest to Cottage Road. 1339 will be further back. Well, this would be 1339 right here. So this is the two of them right there. So that would be the view from Cottage Road. So we're confident that with the existing trees on Cottage Road and the trees that we'd be interested in planting, that would obscure or minimize the impact that the residents of Cottage Road would feel from the 37-foot high buildings that we're requesting. Mr. Cunningham, if you just speak briefly to the landscaping we're proposing.
Here, if you put up that colored rendering plan that I sent you. Good evening, John Cunningham, TEC Landscape Design. Incorporated, located at 62 Wall Street. I went back down there yesterday and looked at the areas that were in question from the, let's say, openings or areas where there might be openings. So I put together, I added some plant material to the existing plant list. The new material is in bold. Okay. Oh, I see. So originally, when I sent this in a month ago, I had mentioned to bring in red cedar at 7 to 8 feet. With now a 6-foot high fence around it, the 7 to 8 foot plant's not going to do a whole lot more than a 6-foot fence. So I've upped it to 12-foot. Plant material is usually gauged. Everyone, I don't know if everyone knows this, 12 to 14, 14 to 16. I put down 12-foot plus, okay? I'd still like to use red cedar. But you see on the plant list that I left you, I also listed green giant. Green giant's not a native, but it's a good grower. It's deer resistant. It gets to about 35, 40 feet tall. Red cedar's probably more in the 30, 35 feet tall. When you look at Cottage Road to the new buildings, just so everyone knows, we're 135 feet to the back of this building from Cottage Road. We're 65 to here. So when you're on the road in a car or walking down the road, your angle up to the buildings, 12 feet is going to do an awful lot. Okay. What I did on the new plant list, this area where my finger is right now is an area that's fairly open. There's really nothing in there to save. There's one large Norway maple. We're going to leave that. Okay. And the reason we're leaving it, the fence is on our property, but the town owns 15 feet on Cottage Road. So this little gray line through here is existing vegetation. Is everything in the existing vegetation going to remain? No, it's not. Because there's some invasive material that's on our side of the property that's growing against existing red cedars. That's one reason why I suggested red cedars as my preferred choice. Okay? So I'll be quick. If you have a large existing tree, it's a Norway maple, which are there. It's a white pine, which are there. The root mass of that existing tree is going to limit you from where your planting is going to happen. Everyone's familiar. The root mass of the plant material is going to restrict you from planting in that area. So there's an opening down here, and there's an opening here. My notes say that we have 12 new trees that are going to be field determined by myself in those open areas. We're going to remove unwanted material, both invasive or a dead piece of material, to try to make it look better. But the existing vegetation here is all going to remain. So your view of these buildings from Cottage Road is going to be very limited. Okay? And quickly, I brought the same idea here down behind, I think it's 1333, the package store. So this area is open. There are some existing maple trees on my arm, but I think we can still get some red cedar back in. Any questions on that?
Right here down here would be the same height.
No, I put them in, if you look at the plant list, there's a lower grade down there.
Oh, I see, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
John, is there a fence along the rear property line?
Yes, there
on
is.
Cottage?
All the way down to here.
Existing or?
No,
proposed?
brand new,
And that's
6 feet high.
cedar?
Yes, we'd like to use white cedar, we'd like to use white cedar 6 foot high without a top, so it's a 6 foot solid piece of.
Which is consistent with the previous, the old.
Yes,
Original
absolutely
approval that ran the fence.
Yes,
There as
okay.
well. Okay. Thank you.
Were the white pines that are there now planted before?
They weren't planted. There's one white pine, it's right here. It was existing. So they developed everything. White pine is native, but the caliper's probably 36 inches. It was a native tree. They probably left there when they developed everything. I would,
Nice tall trees that behind the building now.
oh, yes, there's a big stand of red cedar and white pine. I wouldn't plant white pine, and the reason being, if you drove down Cottage Road, you can look at the existing white pine and see that the branch structure is probably 25 to 30 feet off the grade. So it doesn't really soften anything. The red cedar and the green giant, which I'm hoping it's red cedar, will stay from the floor up to the mature height. And we'll do a lot more for that. Thank you.
We did. We also submitted photos of the existing trees right now. I think, I'm happy to show them to you, but I think you have an idea of what the impact is going to be, what we're proposing and how we're going to offset the size. Prevent the buildings from appearing to be overwhelming. So for those reasons, for the calculation of the 37-foot height was built on making the units as economically viable as possible, because once the building is built, the rent income and or condominium common charges, if it's condominium, are going to be what's used to maintain the building and the grounds. Those, the more consistent we can, the more revenue we can generate from those units, the greater the likelihood of the financial health of the project, which will ultimately mean it's better maintained and kept in better up. So we feel that the 37-foot height is an acceptable height. It's not the 45 feet.
I haven't seen any renderings of the whole complex, including the existing buildings, building, the dermatology building. I mean, these are big buildings, no doubt about it. They're going to dominate that whole space. Is there a rendering of the whole complex?
I don't believe we have a rendering of the entire complex from
But see, this rendering, from the perspective, you've got the dermatology building closest to us. It looks so big. It kind of doesn't give you the right perspective of how big those buildings will be.
Say the original landscape plan, in your file, 2004, shows the entire.
The front elevation?
No,
Drawing?
it's not, it's rendered. It's an overhead. It shows the whole floor.
The original. Well,
we have this street elevation.
Yeah, and looking at that, the buildings look extremely big.
that's the
This
previous
is-
site.
Right.
Did you edit that in the new
Yeah.
section?
This is the
Did that
previous-
lower? Yes. You revised
This
this.
this is
I have it too.
at the current elevation of current height of 37 feet. So it's the same size.
Yeah, here, I can zoom in for you, John.
It's 4 feet lower than this one.
Right. Right down at the bottom. So it's approximately the same height as 1343, but below.
Yeah,
cupola.
but much larger, much larger buildings. All in all.
Understood, but they're within the footprint of what's permissible as of right on the site.
It's 4 feet lower.
I understand.
You're talking about the larger building versus the height. We're talking about the height.
Just how it will fit into the existing complex. You have the softer, Cohen's Bagel building on the right there. You've got these two pretty massive kind of square buildings on the left side.
It's smaller in length along the ground than the Cohen's Bagel building. Both of these buildings are.
Those buildings have some character.
But that's,
That's, just aesthetically, just from a point of how it fits into the whole. This is an entryway into town. It's a first impression for somebody coming in. Those are two big buildings.
but that's why we did this rendering to show what it's gonna look like from somebody coming into town. This is taken from the eastern side of the property. So somebody driving into town, this is what they're gonna look at. So I don't think it looks out of character next to the building at 1343.
Go on. Thank you.
So with regard to the floor area ratio, I would like to point out in the letter that I submitted to the town and what I handed to you, there's a slight variance, and I've circled it on your letters on page 2.
Three.
Page
Circle
3.
them.
Exactly. That's to reflect, it's actually a lower percentage over the 200% ratio than what I had represented in my letter to you yesterday. Mr. Matthews pointed out that the number I had inserted was incorrect. So that's why I wanted to submit this to you tonight to show what the correct ratio is of square footage, what the correct excess amount of residential to commercial square footage is. Again, the 200% ratio is a limit that this commission in its discretion can either eliminate or reduce. And for the reasons I mentioned earlier, the percentage that we're asking for is to sustain the economic viability of the site greater than a one-story residential 1-to-1 ratio would, or if we added commercial units to the second floor, they wouldn't command the same rent that the first floor commercial units would. And so we felt that the more sustainable, the more economically viable outlook or proposal would be to have dwelling units on the second and the third floor. By necessity, if we're putting 2 floors of residential dwelling units in the building, you're going to exceed the 200% ratio, particularly when you factor in staircases, hallways, and elevators that are going to be used to access the residential units. Yes, go ahead.
So if I did these calculations correctly, then 1339 would be a 300% capacity figure. And the 1341 would be about a 275%.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Which again, your regulations permit you to make those waivers, to make those reductions,
Right.
or to disregard them entirely.
Right. We don't make them here, though. We set precedent for other developments in the area. So,
I don't think that's the case. With a special exception permit, you're viewing each application on its own merits. So you can say, we think it makes sense at 1339 and 1341, given the overall pattern of development of this site. But if someone came in and said, this site, you'd have to analyze it on a case-by-case basis. They could refer to it, but you could say, well, that was different because it was part of this overall pattern of development between 1333 and 1347. At some other site, that may not be the case. It may be more of a freestanding development at that site.
Percentage by eliminating or changing 2 units to 1 bedroom. 2 bedroom.
We did do that.
You get 2 units from 1 building.
We did we converted, we reduced 2 2-bedroom units in 1339 to 2 1-bedroom units. And we reduced 2 2-bedroom units in 1341 to 2 1-bedroom. So where before there were 24 2-bedroom units in the 2 buildings, there are now 20 2-bedroom units and 4 1-bedroom units. 2 1-bedroom units in 1339, 2 1-bedroom units in 1341.
The actual population is increased, actually increase your residential.
No, it's the same, the units are the same square footage.
What that did, John, was there used to be storage units on the first floor that now
I'm
that
I'm
space
taking-
turned back into the
I'm taking the
commercial.
numbers we had, and maybe I've got the wrong numbers, if there's information comes in on a unit-by-unit basis. But, okay. Just keep going.
So that's the reason we're making the request. Again, it goes back to the economic viability of the project. And we believe that it serves, the commission has the right to waive these restrictions if you believe that it helps diversify the Madison housing portfolio and does not substantially erode the commercial development of the district. We believe that there is a demand for 1 and 2-bedroom dwelling units in the town of Madison, and that introducing 24 new units, 1 bedroom, 22 bedroom, and 4 1-bedroom units, that addresses and helps diversify Madison's housing portfolio by introducing units that there's a scarcity of. Right? It also does, what we're proposing does not substantially erode the commercial development of the district for the reasons that I mentioned. We're putting commercial uses on the first floor of the buildings, and the office space that would likely be the occupants of commercial units on the second floor, there's not as great a demand for that use as there is for residential dwelling units. So for those reasons, we would ask that the commission reduce the requirement of the 200% cap on dwelling units to commercial floor. The reduction in the number of bedrooms also had an impact on the parking calculation. If you could call up Mike Ott's latest drawing. Just the first page. Maximize that corner. So with regard to 1339, when we changed 2 of the units to 1-bedroom units, that increased the number of spaces that we have. It reduced the number of required parking spaces to 51. 1339 has 62 parking spaces on the plan that we've designed. So we have a surplus of 11 units on 1339. We didn't have as much of a surplus as we had before. If you scroll it down just to 1341. On 1341, the number of seats in the restaurant is now 100. That requires 25 spaces. With the reduction of the change of the 2-bedroom units to 1-bedroom units, the total number of parking spaces required becomes 76. And the number of spaces that we have on 1341 is 62. So we have a 14-space deficit on 1341 and an 11-space surplus on 1339 for a total parking space deficit of 3 parking spaces. We also have the cross access and parking agreements, which allow us to use the parking spaces at 1343 and at 1333 if we need to use those spaces and to travel through those driveways. This commission has in its power the right to waive or reduce the number of required parking spaces. We think it's extremely unlikely under maximum use that we're going to be using all of the parking spaces on 1339 and 1341 at the same time. Even if that were the case and we were 3 spaces short from maximum use, we have the right to use the spaces at 1333 and at 1343. And attached to my letter, there's a schedule of the office hours for the businesses at those properties. And package store at 1333 is open from 10 in the morning, 9 in the morning, Monday through Thursday and Friday and Saturday, and Sunday it opens at 10, and it's open till 8 a.m. Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. Friday and Saturday, and Sundays it closes at 6. So there's activity during those periods of time, but unlikely that people are parking there for extended periods of time. At 1343, the main commercial tenant is Integrated Dermatology. They're open from 7:30 in the morning till 4:30 at night, Monday through Friday. So they're not open at all on the weekend. They're also closed from 4:30 on, which with the restaurant at 1341 is likely to generate most of its traffic in the evenings and on the weekends. So the likelihood of there being excess spaces at 1343, which will be right next door to 1341, is fairly strong. We believe that even without the access to additional parking at 1333 and 1343, it's unlikely that we'd maximize the number of spaces on these 2 parcels, but with the access to those properties and with the hours of operation of those other properties, we don't think that there's going to be any problem with people finding parking. I would note that your regulations, section 8.1, say that an applicant can look to parking facilities within 1,000 feet of the proposed use. All of the properties within this complex are within 1,000 feet of 1343, 1341, and 1339. So for those reasons, we would ask that the commission consider waiving the requirement that we have the maximum number of parking spaces that are required by the zoning regulations, since we're off by 3 and we have access to the parking spaces on the adjacent properties. So with that information at hand, I think the engineering plans, the architectural plans, and the renderings prepared by Point One show that what we're proposing at the 37-foot height is not going to be out of character or out of place relative to the buildings immediately adjacent to it. With the landscaping design that we've presented, there are going to be buffers between the view of the buildings from the Boston Post Road and from Cottage Road. We believe that we've maximized the amount of most desirable commercial space in both buildings on the first floor. We're trying to incorporate dwelling units that we believe will generate revenue to sustain the appearance of the building, the parking area, and contribute to the overall well-being of the commercial development within this site. We also believe that, there'll be a significant tax benefit to the town by adding these 2 buildings. The employees at the restaurants, the businesses operating on the first floor, and the people paying taxes for the residential dwelling units on the 2nd and 3rd floor. We did submit a coastal site plan application, which we really haven't spent much time talking about throughout this process, but I do have Michael Ott available to walk you through that right now because we are within the coastal site plan review area. We've done a number of tests on the property and designed the stormwater management system in such a way that we believe that there will be very little impact of the proposed dwelling units, the proposed buildings on the coastal resources. So I'd like to have Mr. Ott speak to that now.
Thanks, Jeff. Good evening. Just for the record, I'm Mike Ott. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor with Summerhill Civil Engineers, here on Wall Street in Madison. The municipal coastal site plan review application for this particular site is fairly straightforward, because of the site's location and in an upland area and its distance from any surface water resources. The coastal, if you take a look at the application form, the coastal resources are shorelands, which are upland areas located outside of special flood hazard area zones. Our site, as noted both on our drawings and the project narrative, as well as in our stormwater management report, is not located in a special flood hazard area zone. The closest surface water resources are some 550 feet to the northeast on the opposite side of Curry Cross Road. That's also noted in our stormwater management report. And I believe to reinforce that the application for this particular site is pretty straightforward. I think town staff chose to refer the application to the Connecticut DEP, and they sent back a letter. And Aaron, I don't know if you can put your fingers on that easily. I tried to locate it, but could not find it. But I think it'd be worth just kind of summarizing it for the commission, if you could.
Page 1 of the report highlights the project description. Page 2 identifies, analyst identified what coastal resources were present on site and adjacent to the site. The only coastal resources that were checked were general coastal resources, which apply to every coastal site plan, essentially. Let's see. All the rest are not applicable. The boxes, as far as adverse impacts on coastal resources, each one of these items was checked as non-applicable, and general coastal use policies that apply to this application are general development. And again, just as with general coastal resources, general development policies are applicable to all applications. Adverse impacts on potential future water dependent development activities and opportunities, they do not apply. There are no issues of concern that are highlighted in the comments, and ultimately the summary and recommendations. Would you like me to read them? Or are you both? Yeah. Yes. Okay. The analysis, based on the information provided, the applicant has proposed the development of 2 parcels of land on the eastern portion of Boston Post Road in Madison. These parcels are part of the Marketplace of Madison complex, which was originally approved to consist of 4 separate buildings. However, only 2 buildings have been constructed so far, leaving the 2 subject lots vacant for over 20 years. The proposal aims to fill this gap by constructing 2 3-story mixed-use buildings on the vacant parcels. Each building will feature commercial spaces on the first floor and residential units on the upper floors. The commercial spaces will include amenities such as community rooms and storage cubicles, while the residential units will range in size and feature balconies. Access to the buildings will primarily be through a new shared driveway with a neighboring package store. The project includes ample parking spaces, including EV charging stations, and there are cross easements in place for access and shared parking with neighboring properties. Additionally, the project includes provisions for emergency access and underground utilities. The landscaping and site lighting will adhere to the originally approved plans for the Marketplace of Madison complex. Overall, the proposal aims to complete the envisioned Marketplace of Madison complex as initially approved. The comments are that the applicant shall ensure installation and maintenance of appropriate soil erosion and sedimentation control measures during the planned period. And the finding is that this project is consistent with all applicable coastal policies, supporting documentation, GIS map depicting the natural diversity database areas map is also included here. And there's no additional state permits that are required from DEEP associated with this permit. And the analyst was Jason Hale from DEEP. And this is just to highlight the natural diversity database map. Usually you'll see well, you can see here, there's a polygon in this general area.
Thank you, Aaron. I'd be glad to answer any questions if the commission has any on the application.
The only thing I would just add is, and I didn't include it in my letter, handed out to you, is that also we would need a waiver of section 8.4 of your regulations prohibition against parking in the front yard for commercial properties. And we request that because, as you can see from 1343 and 1347, and also at 1333, there is parking in the front yards of those properties. And we would anticipate that you, for consistency's sake, you'd want that to be the same for this property as well. I sent the most recent version of the plans to the engineer for Ms. Mason, the owner of the member of the LLC that owns the package store. He reviewed them and said that they were fine from his perspective. Attorney Crosby had some minor comments and revisions that he sent to me on Friday of last week, and I wrote back to him this morning to let him know that his revisions were fine. So from my perspective, and I believe from Attorney Crosby's, it's resolved. So
And the units, the rental units, have assigned parking.
in my letter, we would be we're going to encourage people to use those areas for residential parking. The concern I have with specifically designating them as residential parking is that we are subject to those cross-access agreements from the other properties, and those folks would have an equal right to use those spaces. And practically speaking, I believe that most of the people who would be living in the two buildings would be parking there anyhow. And so the commercial visitors to the property would be parking off the Boston Post Road rather than traveling around behind to park in spaces. I'm sorry?
The restaurant, customers can park everywhere.
Would be parking out in here, would be our suspicion. And if this lot were full, again, dermatology is closed at 4:30, there's space in front of 1343 for them to park. There's likely going to be space in front of 1343 for them to park there. So based upon the plans that we've submitted, we think that the introduction of the restaurant, additional commercial space in this location on Boston Post Road will substantially serve the public convenience and welfare by creating space for new commercial opportunities in the C district. The appropriate use of neighboring properties will not be substantially or permanently injured by the proposed development of these subject properties. And I'm saying this because these are the criteria for you to review when considering a special exception permit. We believe that with the site plan, with the location of the buildings, the footprints of the buildings, those meet the requirements of your zone. With the requested waiver to allow the buildings to be 37 feet tall, that would be in keeping with your regulations. You have the authority to do that. The parking and the driveway layout are permitted uses in the district, and although we're 3 spaces short on the 2 sites, we believe that with the cross access, easements and the hours of operation, it's unlikely that we will ever be at maximum capacity on 1339 and 1341. But if we were, we've got areas to go to on either side. We've addressed the concerns with regard to the Hammonasset Package Store. We've attempted to address the concerns with the folks on Cottage Road by the landscaping, by leaving the existing trees there and introducing new trees to minimize the impact of these buildings. We believe the proposed use, the uses that we're proposing are in accordance with the comprehensive plan of development as they encourage development in an existing commercial district in a way that complements the existing development and the neighboring commercial properties. Our hope is that people coming to the restaurant, they may not go to Cohen's Bagels at least before they come to the restaurant, but hopefully they'll stop and pick something up on the way home or visit the other commercial enterprises in the area, including the retail spaces in 1339. And also we believe that the introduction of these buildings will enhance the character of the town. And this is an existing commercial site on the Boston Post Road. One of the goals of your comprehensive plan of development is to avoid commercial creep along other sections of the Boston Post Road. What we're proposing is in the C district in an area that's already been fairly substantially developed with commercial use. Given the commercial development of the properties to the west and to the east of 1339 and 1341, we believe that the location of this site is well suited to the proposed development. It does not impair the present or future development of the area, particularly since what we're really trying to do is complete the development of the area in the way that was contemplated by this commission when it improved the Madison Marketplace in 2004. As I mentioned, when completed, we expect that this property will generate significant revenue, tax revenue to the town. And for the foregoing reasons, we respectfully request this commission grant the requested waivers and approve the proposed applications, the special permit application and the coastal site plan. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you might have. Yes.
Are you showing us what ACRA unanimously approved in terms of the design and the height?
ACA approved the initial height at 45 feet. They approved it at 41. They have not seen the 37-foot height yet, but we don't anticipate that they would object to the lower height of the buildings. But we have not been before them with this latest iteration.
But the design is the same.
The design is the same. It's just the height has been reduced. I'm all done unless there's any additional questions.
Is there any additional staff comments?
I provided the staff report today into the record. Attorney Beatty touched on most
Yeah.
all and confirmed that it was basically highlighting all of the requests before you and the changes that have been made since the last hearing. So I'll happily submit it into the record, but I don't think I need to read
Yeah,
it.
right. Pretty much covered it all. Okay. Any questions from the commission? Obviously, I have a couple.
Sure.
I have questions. First, thank you for reducing taking what we said last time into the heart and reducing the height of the building. I think that helps.
We appreciated the feedback and we tried to incorporate it.
Thank you. It's still a big building. I'm still working that through my head as far as how it's going to fit within that space, given what the rest of the room looks like there. So that's still going through my head. I think it makes more sense now than it did before. Honestly, I think this is just comments. It makes it a little more, helps make 1343 make sense. Whereas before that really didn't seem to make sense, which is a big building sitting there. So that actually might help. But one of the things that I'm still stuck on is I think parking is able, when you take the additional residential units above the 200%. And you combine that with the layout of the parking, not necessarily the number of parking, but the layout of the parking. I'm still concerned about the the negative effect that could have on the retail business. It's still in the back of my mind that there's a lot of people who are going to be living there. They're going to want the best spots, and the best spots will be against the building. So how can that be addressed?
Right. Well, we can, to the extent we don't violate the common access agreements, we'd be happy to indicate, residential parking or point a sign towards that. But if you could call up, Mike Otts, I think, Mike, maybe you could tell us what page of your drawing the parking count is on. So that might help Aaron pull it up quickly.
The parking count is on the title sheet, the very first sheet.
No, I
In
meant
the-
the drawing where you show the spaces.
The site, it's on the site layout plan. I think it's sheet C 2.4.
Great. So if you, Aaron, if you could enhance that a little bit. So it's, I know we can't look at both screens at the same time, but for 1339, the number of required spaces for the residential use is 22. That's the 10 two-bedroom units and the 2 one-bedroom units. So if you look here, there's 15 spaces right here, 7 here, 8 here, and there's another 7 here, so that gets us up to 22 right there. There's 7 here, so that's 29. There's 5 here, so that gets us to 34. So that's more than the 20, that's 12 more than the 22 spaces that we need. And I understand your concern that they may want to park closer here, but this is going to be the primary entrance into this building for the residential units. And just speaking for myself, I would prefer to park where I know there's going to be less traffic, people coming in and out of the car, which would likely be in this area, in these areas here. If we move over a little bit this way, then we've got 11 spaces here. I don't think I'm double counting that. And then 4 spaces here. So that's another 15 spaces, which I think would encompass nearly all of the residential parking required, because we'd also have 22 spaces needed for the building, for the residents of 1341. So that would be in the aggregate 44 spaces that we'd need. And I think if we go,
What's the primary entrance for 1341?
1341 is right here as well. So this is the main entrance into these buildings. So I understand your concern, but I just think practically speaking, most of the residents are going to park in these areas rather than in the commercial, the quote unquote commercial part. of the
Yeah,
lot.
is it possible to specify parking just for retail? I'm not going to assume what kind of stores we're doing, but let's assume they're retail and it's foot traffic and it's, people in the store that make the difference.
Right.
The restaurant's on the right, so you don't really need anything there.
The restaurant's going to be in here, correct?
So is it possible for the rest of the spots, those ones against the building, to be designated as retail parking? I don't know how to do it. But give the store owners the right to make a phone call and say, get this car out of here.
Again, I think that we're at a bit of an issue with the cross access easement. We could say, preferred parking for, we may be able to put up signage that would indicate that. Exactly. But I don't think from an enforcement perspective, we'd really be within our rights to do that, because the idea of this cross access and parking agreement was that all of the units across could share it to the extent they needed to. But yeah. But I do think, the other thing to keep in mind is there's the primary access way in is here off the Boston Post Road. If you're coming in to go to any of these stores, you're likely going to come in and try to park here. You're less likely to go up and around the back, and are also going to come in and go out through this main driveway here. And I don't want to say hopefully, but my expectation is that some of the people coming to visit these stores may never even make it behind these buildings to realize that there's parking back there, to see that.
Yeah. Michael Reynolds, the developer, one of my partners here tonight, Mr. Marinero. Mr. Reiner, thank you, Mr. Mannix, I really appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Reiner. We have 7 mega locations up in the central part of the community. We struggle with this every day. One employee parks in the front, she's older, there's really not much in the center. I park on the side when I'm there, I get that. People want to pull out, come in, get a bagel or whatever they have and leave. And I can appreciate that because if someone's paying 1.3 million for a condo, they're gonna want to park there. I get it. So there's a learning curve, there's some training that has to be done. You know, we do a 30-minute sign for retail. But if someone's paying me $5,000 a month for space, maybe that's a customer for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Maybe the hair salon is 2 hours. So just like someone can park at Cohen's in the morning and spend a couple hours there reading a book, they can keep their car there and walk over to get lunch at the restaurant. So that's a very important question, and I appreciate it. We really don't know. Again, it almost happens, it fixes itself, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, the residents come, they might commute, take the train, they might have one car, a family of 3 or 4. They come for 104 days a year. We hope to get some, local Madisonites, we do. But I really understand the question, and I'm concerned about that too. They don't want to park at Cohen's if they paid all that money for a condo, they're paying condo fees. So I think it's just gonna happen. I really don't know how, but it will. It just does.
Yeah.
One of the properties we have, I can pull it up, the camera right now, there's no parking in Southington, one of our locations. They have a karate place, they have a sushi place, a package store. There's absolutely no parking. And the seafood place next door will not let us cross over, right? But we have to cross these. So we struggle with that every day. So I do understand the question, and I appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
And we'll do our best, whether that's in a lease, maybe we do one designated spot, but we really can't with respect to the cross easements that the Dollar family was forward thinking that did it. I think it helps everybody. When you can't cross, CVS, you get the shop right, you get upset, you gotta come out, go around late. I always say, who's the engineer that did this? So I hope that helps answer your concern.
Yeah, thank you.
Stephen Dowler, 80 Edinburgh Lane. I actually manage the properties next door, and so I very intimately involved on a daily basis in how they actually interact with residential and commercial across all the properties. And start with communication. We talked with all tenants. I had a tenant down the street, actually another property redeveloped where the former racquetball club, it's now a medical building next to Lenny Joe's, where we also have shared parking agreement between the 2 properties. But this particular doctor would show up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, park right up front. We go inside for all day long and never know that he's taking the prime spot from his patients. We had to communicate with him on that, and he would move. It was a matter of keeping communication and knowing the flow of the property itself. And we will continue to have a relationship here with the property because it is substantially what was approved prior to the size of the buildings, the girth of the buildings, the footprint of the buildings, were was approved 20 years ago. And as a gateway, and I do agree that it is a gateway, formerly it was a dilapidated Burger King and Duchess that sat vacant and disrepair. That's where 1343 is today. It's a church-looking building. But how these integrate together and how they work on a daily basis is really about communication and knowing how they actually work in conjunction with each other. And the cross parking easements are that. It's actually John Cunningham in his Alcobas on the street front way back when, and I thought Lucas Tree and CLP Eversource by cutting them down because the scope of observation softened both the parking and the buildings themselves. So just regarding the parking itself, it is integrated. It is something that has been enjoyed across the properties, 1333 and 1347 primarily, and it's been seamless. And it's been a whole host of different businesses and individuals living there that have worked in conjunction with each other. And for nearly 20 years, we've made that very comprehensive for everybody and work on for everybody.
Thank you.
Any determination whether the units will be leased units or condominiums?
I think the plan is going to be condominiums.
Questions? If not, any comments or questions from the public in the room? Anyone online have a question? Next one, please, Nancy. Thank you.
No one's hands are raised. They'll jump to the top
All
if
right,
the hand gets raised.
so then we move to,
So questions and just to confirm, no comments from those in attendance via Zoom? Just wanted to make sure. So if the commission doesn't have any other questions or seeks additional information, and if the applicant has concluded their presentation, then we can entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
right, we have a motion to close the public hearing. Go ahead.
I didn't know if there was anybody else who wanted to speak in favor or not.
Oh, sorry, I just comments in general.
One thing
I
on
did-
the soapbox, I promise not to put a bagel shop there with respect to development
Yeah.
and colors. I'm on the record, I won't do it.
Appreciate it.
Yes, no, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to say only in, those in opposition. It was general, anyone with questions. We've had public comment before, that's why we didn't specify.
Oh, wait, got a hand.
Attorney Crosby has raised his hand. Attorney Crosby, can you unmute?
Yep, am I on mute now?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we support the application. As you know, I represent the owner of the M&S Package Store property, and that Attorney Beatty accurately reflected and represented our agreement, and we're in 100% agreement with the plan.
excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There's no one else, we have a motion to close the public hearing. Okay,
Second.
all right. All in favor? Aye, okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. All right. Now we wait.
Deliberate?
Thoughts? Deliberate?
Again, I think we should wrap this up. I think we should approve it. They've addressed significant concerns. Some positives are significant. There's really no negatives. I think the one possible sticking point regarding residences versus commercial space, I mean, as Attorney Beatty points out, it's a matter of context. This is a development inside a commercial, existing commercial area. So that concern, which is really discretionary anyway, seems to be addressed in that application. And also, it's not final, but we do a little bit of difference on the back regarding design, size, and so. So for those reasons, it's supposed to be approved.
I would agree with that. I think there's a natural layout of parking that can just send people to the right place. You know, residents would just do the way it's set up for the entrance.
If anything, I would worry about parking is the restaurant. That can, it can maybe underestimating cars. Not greatly. Very well thought out. Situation.
My view is that it's addressed most of my concerns about the issue. Probably should reasonable to make with the other structures. Not optimal, but it's adequate.
Yeah, I think it's definitely needs something here. This is a good idea. I struggle with the flow ratio. I go back to one of the current residents who mentioned how they felt like we were developing that whole area with residential in pretty heavy capacity in residential. We've got the marina landing across the street that someone's going to buy and come to us, and we're going to want to do pretty much the same thing. That's my concern about setting a precedent of 300% versus our regs of 200%. I mean, I wish this could, if this came in at 200%, this would be a no-brainer. So that's what.
I'm
It's a valid concern.
kind of in the same place that it's the size of the buildings and one thing that's going.
I'm gonna
Sorry,
have to
yeah,
ask
I know.
everybody to face
Speak up.
the microphone, because I'm not catching you and
Okay. But you can tell.
our
the
clerk is
transcriber.
not
Got it.
catching what you're saying. So that means our audience online is
Like to
not
say
catching
again?
you either.
Did John, speak again.
Did you get me?
No, if you could just recap that, well, just briefly, it was the 200% that you struggled with.
Yes.
Was- I heard that.
No, I'm struggling with the 300%. If this came in as 200%, I give it a second thought. The parking, I think parking's addressed. Building is big. It'd be interesting to see when it's finished and how it actually fits in the space. But for me, it's the residential space that we're
Yeah.
creating a special exception.
I'm not an engineer or known for my aesthetic sensitivities, but what was the rationale for 200%? Know why that's in there?
No.
I don't.
So what?
I mean,
I came in early and looked, there's nothing.
It's a newer, that regulation, Bob, was not in existence when the original application
Okay.
came forward. It's a newer regulation from the, that came into effect after 2004. And that's,
I'm gonna guess it's in
Where we
response
are.
to something somewhere.
I think,
It's just saying somewhere there was something that upsets him.
So I would say I would echo John's thoughts. I think the parking has been addressed. I think you need more than 10 employees for a 100-seat restaurant, you probably ask him. But I think you're underestimating how many employees you need, but I still think there's enough parking. So I think the parking has been addressed. Still concerned about the retail, but like you said, I think it'll just work itself out. I appreciate that the height is much lower. If anything, I think it'll make that area make more sense. What number is it? The church, the dermatology building.
yeah,
That doesn't fit. And now maybe it
1343.
will fit because it's going to be the scale whether it's going
Think it
down.
is.
So I'm okay with that, but the number of people is still the one thing that catches me. And I think that's from both the retail, commercial side, and also, John said, is the impact on the people who live behind it. So now, the people who have been living there for a long time have the two new developments on the other side of Cottage Road. There are two, right? Which is the one. And this, so there's a big influx of people coming into that area. And I'm not sure that proper attention is given to the traffic patterns. But I'm not sure how to control those anyway. I'm not sure there's an answer for that problem, other than blocking off all the driveways and back of the parking. And I don't think that's good to say.
Safety. We actually never revisited sidewalks. And we love to see sidewalks.
Yeah, that's a great point. The town is short sidewalks in general.
So one thought about the 200% residential commercial is if the number of the residents overwhelming. I think that might be a consideration.
Yeah.
There's so many resident buildings put in there. that
Yeah.
Would that overwhelm any kind of commercial?
Yeah. And that's,
That might be a way.
yeah, kind of like on the edge of, is this going to overwhelm the commercial or not? I mean, there aren't that many apartments or
Right.
they're fairly large in which you live. So reduces the number of people, but still, that's the balance. So we gotta get a little bit more to one side of these, to right on the edge.
Somehow, I'm showing my ignorance here a little bit, but I don't see that these are $1 million condominiums, that somehow there's going to be all kinds of rowdy street people interfering with the commercial of the residents.
That's the parking. That's the parking. They take up key spots.
Yes.
Parking, yeah.
So you're right, there's 12 units in each building. The original, and now 10 of them are 2-bedroom units and 2 of them in each building are 1-bedroom units. The prior approval had 10. Hold on, I can
It's
tell
been
you.
reduced.
It is an increase from the previous originally approved application. However, I think I put that in my, although I don't have my staff report printed.
Is there a mechanism for us to make an approval with a condition that post completion, there is some kind of traffic analysis?
For what purpose?
Make sure there aren't a bunch of cars traveling up and down Cottage Road.
Well, you have a traffic analysis
But it
by
wasn't sufficient.
SLR.
I know, but that was just for this property and it stayed in the parking. It didn't take into account the other 2 developments, which we asked for. And we didn't get. I forgot that. we didn't get. So,
I'd have to reread that
I know,
to
but
see if that's,
I'm thinking like, get a medical device approved, the FDA can say, great, it's approved, but tell us how it's going. And we can change our mind and we can maybe do something different. So it could be if there is this tremendous influx of traffic, we can have a way to address it. Exit,
you have to speak up, Mike.
make that entrance in the back and no exit. One way. I don't know.
I believe the emergency,
Okay.
yeah, my understanding of the traffic report, just from recalling the last presentation, was that these additional developments are taken into consideration when, in the projections.
All right, okay.
I think it was Neil who was here from SLR who explained that process. Explain the. It was 2 meetings ago.
The only reason I'm hearing that these things have to be maximized.
You know, it's called the Marketplace of Madison. I have a suspicion that market mechanisms would deal with some of the concerns. Repeat, okay, well, it seems to me, I mean, it's called the Marketplace of Madison, right? Sorry again, guys. Okay, it's the Marketplace at Madison. I suspect that in practice, a number of these concerns would be dealt with through the humans getting together and saying, hey, we need more parking spaces, let's do so and so. That they're not gonna, it's not gonna be static, which is healthy. I mean, planning involves changing. So I, you know, compared to, it may not be perfectly what I would do, but so what? It's a big improvement. It would be a real positive addition to the town, which needs more housing, needs another restaurant. Just repeating myself.
You, Mike, who brought up the traffic and the future.
Yeah.
Traffic projections, that is discussed on page 5 of the traffic study. With the future, estimated future roadway traffic, I recall Neil explaining that, but I couldn't give you
It's within reason.
answer the entire, but it does take into consideration the 35 Cottage Road development that is not yet built of
Okay.
18 units on the western end of Cottage Road. It does take into consideration 31 units at 131 Cottage, that's the Wellington, as well as this
Okay.
Marina Landing across the street, 168, 178, which is 37 2-bedroom units, retail, office, and the marina. And then there's a growth rate projection that was also accounted for in those figures. So if you
Right,
want to
okay.
see that,
No, I remember it. I
Hold on.
remember that that part was on for the analysis. Okay, all right. Any other?
the stuff, yes, this is linked to the documents on the website.
Any other points for deliberation?
Regarding traffic, we have one issue, which is not our concern, unfortunately. It's the condition of Cottage Road. Right, and the
Oh,
traffic
yeah.
itself is.
No.
needs improvement. And it could use sidewalks, there's a lot to do with, it's not part of the discussion. So one, and two, I mean, how much time do we spend on PIC discussion talking about diversified housing and making more units available? Now, at the end of a 20-year process, it's right here in front of us in a perfect location. It seems like this is a really easy decision on the issue.
It's all how you define diversity.
Well, we talked about that in POC discussion, right? It's basically not simple family housing. So here we are.
Right, in addition to.
Right.
Okay, so someone want to make a motion? Yeah, you want to make a motion.
Sure you do.
Yes, you do.
It's in your folder. I can bring it up.
Could you use the microphone, please? We can't hear you at all.
Must have lost first.
Okay.
No. Here.
I can pull it up for you.
You pull it up? It's- no.
So I have a draft resolution prepared for you, that I'm happy to give two comments on, when you're in your discussion or prior to making your motion. I did want to bring to your attention, and I can pull this up before you make the motion. One of the draft conditions that I added was similar to the previous application. And that special exception language from that approval spoke to the installation of the 6-foot privacy fencing along the property boundary on Cottage Road. And so in this particular area, this mirrors the previous condition of approval. Landscaping along Cottage Road shall provide year-round screening between this use and the adjacent residential uses. The vegetation removed for construction purposes or to eliminate invasive species shall be replaced with
Okay.
plantings. And if you'll notice, my recommendation is that it should also read, additionally, the 6-foot fence proposed, shall be installed along the along the Cottage Road boundary for the full width of the parcel.
Makes sense.
All right, yeah, I was gonna ask that.
Also, Aaron, line item 6 is twice. You need to change that, reduce that. That one should be a 7. And that should be, and it should say color temperature, not just temperature.
There was one additional thing that I wanted to note for you before you make the motion. The architectural plans show site work proposed on the Hammonasset Package Store property. That property is not part of this application. So the staff's recommendation would be that when work is, when property owner looks to commence work on the Hammonasset Package Store, that property is also subject to a separate site plan application. And those approvals should be
Okay.
sought at that time.
All right, so
And that's all I have. So scroll up for you. So you can.
we can hold it right there. I'm gonna read from here until I get down to your line.
Okay, I'm just gonna let folks see.
Okay, oh, I see.
There you go.
All right, ready?
Go to.
Voted that the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission approved application number 24-06, 1339 and 1341 Boston Post Road, map 31, lots 34 and 34-61. Zone C, owner HBS Associates, 1339 Boston Post Road, LLC, 1341 Boston Post Road, LLC, and 1343 Boston Post Road, LLC. Applicant 1339 and 1341 Boston Road, LLC, special exception.
You're gonna have to speak up directly. Sorry.
Special exception permit for section 6.1.2.2, 6.15.2, and 6.13G, and coastal site plan application to construct two three-story mixed-use buildings, 45. Oh, that's not correct anymore.
There's amendment language
Oh, I
in
see.
here, yes.
With commercial uses on the first floor and 12 residential units on the upper floors, 24 units total, and associated site improvements as shown in application materials and supporting documentations and a set of plans entitled The Marketplace of Madison, 1339 and 1341 Boston Post Road, US Route 1, Madison, Connecticut, by Summerhill Civil Engineers and Land Surveyors, PC dated 2024, revised in May 28th of 2024, architectural plans by John A. Matthews, architecture and planning, Marketplace of Madison, 1339 to 1341 Boston Post Road, sheets A1, A1.1, A-2-F6, SCRCP, SL-1B, excluding sheets CS, SP-2, LP-1, dated May 23rd, 2024. Landscape plan, LP-1, Marketplace of Madison, Madison, Connecticut, by Tech Landscape Design Incorporated, dated February 12th, 2024, and revised March 28th, 2024, with the following conditions. One, that the zoning enforcement officer be notified at least 48 hours prior to commencement of any regulated activity. Two, that all erosion and sedimentation controls be installed prior to any disturbance and be maintained for the duration of construction activities and until the site is sufficiently stabilized for the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer. Three, lot line revision shall be filed on the Madison Land Records prior to the issuance of a preliminary certificate of zoning compliance. Four, the subsurface stormwater system shall be inspected by the design engineer during the construction to verify consistency with the approved plans. Five, an as-built survey of the properties, including stormwater system components, shall be submitted to the commission with written verification from a licensed engineer that the system was constructed in accordance with approved design plans. This submittal shall be completed prior to the issuance of the final certificate of zoning compliance. Six, a condensed inspection and maintenance chart shall be prepared by the design engineer identifying the inspection, management, and maintenance frequency required for each component of the stormwater treatment system. This chart shall be submitted to the zoning enforcement officer for a review prior to the issuance of the final certificate of zoning compliance. Seven, all site lighting shall be installed according to plans with a color temperature of 3000 K. Eight, landscaping along College Road shall provide year-round screening between this use and the adjacent residential use. Vegetation removed for construction purposes or to eliminate invasive species shall be replaced with plantings that provide year-round screening. Additionally, the 6-foot privacy fence shall be installed along the Cottage Road property line for both 1339 and 1341 Boston Post Road. Be it further voted that the commission approved an increase in maximum average building height of 37 feet for both 1339 and 1341 Boston Post Road. Be it further voted that the commission allows for increased floor area of the drawings. The commission finds that increasing residential use on the second and third floors further enhances the economic viability of the project. The accessible single and two-bedroom parking will provide a needed housing type within our community. It is further noted that the commission reduces the parking requirement on 1341 Washington Post Road by 3 parking spaces and approves the use of shared parking for section 8.2 of the zoning regulations as the applicant has successfully demonstrated additional parking provided within the proposed 1339 Boston Post Road and on the adjacent parcel to the east and west that share cross access and parking easements as originally intended during the 2004 land use process. Be it further noted that the commission waives the prohibition of parking within the front yard of section 8.4 as the site layout is consistent with adjacent parcels and provides for appropriate streetscape and site access. The commission further finds the proposal consistent with all applicable goals and policies in the Coastal Management Act and section 25 of Madison zoning regulations. The applicant's effort to handle increased impervious surface coverage in accordance with the state stormwater quality manual and maintain adequate soil and erosion controls for construction activities are adequate. No impacts on coastal resources are anticipated given the location of the subject parcel. In the event that changes to the approved plans are required as a result of public agency permitting to support the proposed activity, the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission reserves the right to review said changes and may require modification of this approval. This approval is made based upon the finding that proposed use is a permitted use in the district and that the standards, prerequisites, and conditions specified by the regulations have been met. The public convenience and welfare will be substantially served, and the appropriate use of neighboring properties will not be substantially or permanently injured. The effective date of this approval is June 21st, 2024, and upon filing of the certificate of special exception on the land.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Any extensions? No? John down is opposed.
What's that?
John is a.
John opposed. Okay.
Right,
Thank you very much.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Chairman Reinhardt, Commissioners, Ms. Mannix, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Happy birthday.
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on to the next. Continuation, I guess, public hearing.
251 Boston Post Road, application 24-15.
Good evening. Jeffrey, not rid of me yet. Sorry. Jeffrey Beatty for the applicant. I4 Boys LLC. This is the Madison Oyster House, formerly the site of the Winter Club. At our last meeting, we had indicated that we would reach out to speak with the Department of Transportation to see about possibly relocating the driveway entrance of the site further to the west in an effort to avoid having the driveway that exits on Stonewall Lane be used in that capacity. I'm here with Mr. Mandel. We've had the conversations with the folks at the DOT. He's going to indicate to you what the results of those discussions were.
Good evening, Chuck Mandel. We submitted a couple of exhibits resulting of moving the sight line of the driveway 150 feet from the intersection of Stonewall. The sight line is actually worse. I don't know if you have that sheet.
The profile one?
Yeah, the profile of the moved driveway. I do have a copy of it.
I can pull that up.
Okay. It'll demonstrate the problem with the sightline distances. Let's see. So actually, it's right here. So we need a 560-foot sightline. the low tech here. So this is looking to the west. You can see the entrance is here, you hit this hump, and this is all Post Road in here. So you can see the dashed line is actually the sight line, and this is the existing grade. So we would have also 2 foot cut. TNT will. Correct, coming, yes, if we do move.
I saw the surveyors out there.
Yeah, I meant the state surveyors out there and we were looking at that specifically. The other item that we did discuss was moving the entrance of Stonewall closer, of the exit, coming out of Stonewall, closer to the intersection. But the Connecticut Department of Transportation Highway Design Manual, actually under, layouts, entrance and exits, spacing, entrances and exits should be at least 150 feet apart and 150 feet from a public intersection. Where practical, these distances should be 300 feet. So we're at 150 feet with the existing entrance, and I can give you that as an exhibit also. The other item, what we did do is I was talking to Fred Cheney of DOT, who's in charge of this area. We discussed doing a left turn only. The one way we can do that is we put a 26-degree angle on the exit. So it blends the vehicles to they can only turn to the left. If they want to turn right, they have to make some awkward turn to get over there. We were also thinking of some of the residents from that area, if they wanted to go to the restaurant to get out of there, they'd have to make this circuitous route, which almost wouldn't work. So instead of putting.
Oh, wow.
We will walk.
Oh, walk, right.
It's a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, yep, I got it. Yeah, so instead of putting a hard curb in there, we could do a mountable curb, which if someone really wanted to drive, they could kind of drive over the curb if they wanted to, but most of the traffic would want to just go to the left, and there would be signage indicating that. So our hands are tied. We appealed to Tracy May. She will not let us use that for an entrance, for an exit. The sight line is just not there unless we had extensive cutting along Neck River and on other properties. So that's kind of where we stand.
Just to make sure I understand, on that road, when you
You're
turn
gonna-
right, there's no out.
You're gonna need to really
And we have
use the
people
microphone.
on drive into-
Sorry, so the procedure is they get to talk, we ask questions, then you all can ask all the questions you want, okay?
Just to be clear, there is no outlet on that road anywhere to any other place.
Correct.
And you could do something like add another no outlet sign or some other thing you might be trying.
We were thinking of additional signage, dead end, residents only, no free traffic. I mean, there's all kinds of signage.
All right, so the only other concern that I had was the headlights in the ladies' bedroom in the Salmon House. Have you done anything you think to address?
Well, that's why we put that 26-degree angle on there. We could make it,
Second drawing.
Second drawing, exactly.
Okay.
yeah,
I'll get that.
I think so, yeah. So that's why we put an angle on there. We could make it more severe, but we actually have to account for single unit 30-foot length vehicles. So trucks that service the building, the box trucks, can come in, but you need the SU-30 turn. So we had to accommodate the turn. So we made that angle as severe as we could to accommodate SU-30. We could look at making it more severe, but I don't think that's going to work. So we're really hamstrung.
All right, so you could go, the entrance, the exit could go maybe further north.
It could go north, yes.
Okay, so they wouldn't be firing right into her bedroom.
Exactly, but there'd be more clearing, but yes, we could actually go north. Right now, we're opposite the their driveway.
And have you considered like a hedgerow also to mitigate something?
We can put hedgerow, but then we don't want it into the sight line. So, and if we can't assume that they would want some plantings on their property and can't put it in town right of way. So,
Could you ask them?
sure, we could. Okay. Absolutely.
And just so the commission
Oh,
can see
okay.
it, the drawing is up of what Mr. Mandel was saying with the
Yeah, I see it.
hard left right here.
So the hatched is the
The hatch is the existing, correct,
driveway.
correct, on the dark. So we are turning it, their driveway is right here with the opening of the stone wall.
So I guess the question then too was, is it possible to bring it closer to Boston Post?
No, that was based on the highway design manual. We cannot bring it any closer. We looked at that.
You said that's 150 feet now.
Correct, correct. They recommend 300. So we do have room to move it to the north, but there's ledge and brush, and there's a nice natural buffer right here, but we could certainly move it.
So this may not. The DOT manual, does that apply on all local roads as well, or does,
That's the recommendation.
it's a recommendation?
Yes.
So
yes.
there may be flexibility
There could be, but
in
then,
that distance in conversation with our engineering department?
yeah, there could, yes.
I'm
Maybe,
asking.
yeah, no, those were the
These are
recommendations. Like I said,
design-
they recommend 300 feet for stacking. Right now, there could be 6 cars here based on 150 feet.
So what is the difference in elevations from grade elevations as you're at the
Yeah.
egress for
So
the
this-
adjacent property there?
Yeah, so I don't see the spot grades aren't on here, but they're probably on the other site plan, on the original
Yeah,
site plan.
it just doesn't really show that property.
Yeah, there is a stone wall here. It's,
See what it-
yeah, it's about level.
This would look
It's
like.
level at the road and then the house is up.
It does.
Yeah, the pink house is pretty much elevated up. there. But the entrances are at grade. They're right opposite each other.
So this evening, you wanted to provide an update to the commission and get feedback as far as the direction that you're
Exactly.
going?
We, at last month's meeting, we said we would contact the DOT. We did. This is the feedback that we received. And given the unlikelihood of us being able to move the entrance further west because of the crest from the post road, that's no longer an option. So then we tried to figure out, okay, well, as some of the members of the commission just suggested, could we move the entrance on the stone wall lane further south towards the post road to avoid shining the lights in the neighbor's driveway? And the recommendation is that we not do that because they like a 300-foot buffer, and we're at 150 now, so our concern is that, and not to say that we couldn't discuss it with the town engineer further, but that's the feedback that we received as far, so we wanted to share that information with the commission.
I have the same question as you. Is it a requirement as in you have no choice, or is it just their recommendation? So I think the town engineer would help us understand how close we can get to Boston Post Road and offset that exit from the driveway across the street.
Or what, yeah, where along that
Right.
point?
Would it be
I
allowed?
guess that was my question, what? you know,
Right, we did ours based on the
where could have
comments.
the
Right, we
least
based this on the
amount of
comments.
impact on the property across the
We
street.
based this on the comments from DOT, and the commission members had asked us to explore certain possibilities, which we did by the sightline. And this is based on DOT recommendations, having the 150, but we have not discussed anything with the town engineer.
You're gonna speak up because we can't hear what you're
Myself.
saying. Oh, you're talking to yourself. My,
Yeah, so let me just say, so the ultimate goal is, well, number one, we cannot use the post road. That's a given. So where we put this, we can make that a condition of approval. We can explore any possibility. We know what we want to do is mitigate the headlights with plantings, but we can explore any of that. I think the big nut on this whole thing is we have to come out on stone. That's all, at somewhere on there.
All right, well, my suggestion or recommendation would be to have a discussion. Would be to have a discussion with the nice woman that lives in the salmon colored house across from you.
Absolutely.
See what options that she would consider among, if at all. And then including possibly moving the entrance from the north, or if you talk to the town engineer.
If possible. Yes, absolutely. That's why we're here.
I agree.
You know, we're amenable to doing whatever we can to minimize the impact on the folks at Stonewall Lane.
I want you to follow the law first and foremost, and I want to make that nice lady happier than she is right now.
That's what our goal is.
And we also have our client to deal with.
Only being 3 years, so.
And I would recommend also exploring options, your recommendations for signage for patrons
Yes.
exiting
Yep.
and deliveries exiting the property. What would be the most appropriate signage there before you're getting to the stop sign as far as
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
directions?
Mhm.
Any other questions? Any questions?
Yes. Can I speak? Can I use the map as well?
Sure.
Oh, great. Nicholas Robinson, 16 Stonewall Lane. I know we had talked about the property across the street. My bedroom is right here. Right here. So every single person that comes out this entrance or comes up here, lights are going to shine right in my bedroom. And we also, so we have, like, my property is from, here to here. So not only are these people affected from the light pollution, but I am directly in my bedroom affected by by any of the light pollution that comes up this way, or that's coming out this way, or that's coming out this way, but specifically up here. So I think we're looking at the same issues here as we are here.
But there isn't an entrance going on. So my question to you is, isn't there a tree line or some foliage there?
For 3 months of the year, there is, yes.
Okay.
So when they cut down all of that foliage, like everybody saw my property, which is fine, that's just the way it is, but there's no tree line, there's no fence, and it would take a pretty sizable fence, basically right on or right next to my property to block that light that's coming in.
So mature trees might be a possible answer.
Well, my wife's got a pretty good green thumb. We have some big oak trees, but down at the lower level, there's tons of ivy. So we've actually tried to plant our own evergreens or something bushes. It does not grow there. We've tried to remove that. It comes back. So it's pretty hard to put some mature trees.
On your property,
No, I mean, on his, it's because the property kind of flows to his. So this right here is kind of, at this point, if this is where the existing driveway is, it's wooded here, not wooded here at all. So, but even if it's wooded here, still gonna get, I don't want to wait 10 years for those trees to mature to,
Plant mature.
understood. Understood. But I still think, we're gonna see, if it's successful, we're gonna see 100 cars a night flashing directly into my living room and to my bedroom, which is right here. So that was why when the neighborhood, when we looked at this originally, we said, we're all for this. This is an absolute non-starter for us. And so we all said, hey, as long as this goes, you've got all of our support. So this, a double entrance here, an entrance here, an entrance here, like those, we need to find some sort of equitable solution that's going to work. But exiting this way and light pollution here, light pollution of Karen, the Rosenthal Birch's house right here, my house right here. We really don't want to see 100 cars a day going and exiting that. And we hope it's successful. So we hope there's a lot of cars.
You already heard that there's no solution on Boston Road, did you not?
We heard those were recommendations.
Okay.
We heard recommendations. We did not hear that's a hard, fast rule. So what I've heard on the last two meetings is both times recommendations, not like, hey, you can't do this or we can't do this. We also know that there might need to be some trees removed here for the line of sight or some other issues right here on the line of sight. We haven't talked about any of those things that could happen to improve the line of sight. All we've said is, hey, that doesn't work. That's the only way. But we also heard there's only DOT recommendations. So I think we really still want to find a better solution down on the Post Road, not just for the 3 properties here, but for the whole neighborhood at all. We already know how difficult it is we were thinking about putting a sign over here. I'm sure she doesn't want a sign over on the other side of the street saying left turn only, like right next to her nice stone wall. And, someone after, whatever, we don't know where people are going to go. And then, we've got cars going in around here. But for me and for primarily my property here, it comes down to lights going in here,
And then for them, and then obviously we talked about the Leveronis who live there. So I think that's a big issue. And as I said, I mean, we are all for this project, but that was always a non-starter. And from you guys itself, you guys said, no, that's what we did. And we reissued that, or you reiterated that 3 weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago, whatever it was. So that's
Thank
it. Thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Ed Riley, we live at 33 Stonewall Lane, which is on Stonewall Lane, about 4 houses in. As Nick said, that was the kind of non-starter for the whole neighborhood. We met, we loved the fact that a restaurant was going in. We thought that was good for the town and for us. But going out Stonewall Lane, we heard that it's very difficult from the state highway or DOT, whatever it is, to put different exits. But go sit at Stonewall Lane and try to take a look with a 4-foot wall. You actually have to already pull out into the street in order to see it. It's very difficult when only 15 cars a day go. And my question to you, what is the sight line? How many feet from Stonewall to Mungertown? I bet you that is even less than a sight line the DOT requires for entering and exiting in the middle of the restaurant. Because if you try to sit at Stonewall Lane and attract any time that's difficult, it's hard to get out. Currently, there's probably 15 cars a day that go out of there. And very few at night. It's a very residential neighborhood. You know, no one leaves after 7:30 at night. It's just the way it is. There's no streetlights. And so right now, you know, I've heard the same thing Nick did, is we hear that, oh, the recommendations are X, but for the neighbors, you know, had there been an exit there, we would have been up in arms, the original meetings, absolutely. Because it is very close from there to Mungertown. And by the way, there's traffic coming from 2 directions to the right. First, the Post Road and Mungertown. It's a very difficult spot, much worse from somebody who does it all the time than coming off of Neck Road onto the Post Road. That's a much easier turn than the Stonewall exit out because you can see in both directions. So we would say, I don't think they've come back with anything but, well, we don't really want to do that. So we're going to go back to where we are. I mean, changing the angle grade that's not what the neighborhood was hoping to accomplish.
Another quick question. I mean, I know
There's to acknowledge speakers,
Yeah.
Mr.
Sorry,
Chair.
there was a lot of accidents at Mungertown. I know it's a very high-speed road, but like, my question is if there was a light on Mungertown and Boston Post Road, would it slow the speed down enough where line of sight wouldn't be as an issue? Like, or is it because you're at a lower, every summer we get accidents right on the corner of Stonewall and Mungertown. I mean, that kind of right in front of the Leveroni's house. So it's like, it's just a high-speed traffic. So, but if there was a light there, would that slow the traffic down enough where the DOT would it be acceptable to multiple driveways? Just a thought.
Thank you. Thank you for your thoughts and your points. I think it's something the applicant needs to take into account and figure out. So I appreciate that. Please.
One question I had for the commission was whether or not there was a traffic study associated with the initial application, focusing on ingress and egress from that driveway on the Boston Post Road. If the commission is looking for any analysis as far as from a traffic expert's perspective, it would be helpful if you let the applicant know at this point so they could get you that information for a follow-up meeting.
I think that's going to be,
With respect to that
yeah, I think it's going to be
intersection.
important to have once we understand where the possible exits are.
So
So,
that would be the applicant would need to present a specific proposal to you of where it would go.
Yeah, Chuck Mandel, if I can speak to that. This was not a recommendation by DOT, by the way. This is set in stone. They will not let us exit from here.
Is that documented?
From Tracy May, I have emails. I can certainly supply it.
Please make that part of the record.
Yep, absolutely. In regards to sightline, there'd be extensive cutting over the Neck River. There are environmental issues, reducing the shade for finfish. It's a very valuable area in there. And in addition, we'd have to gain easements from the neighboring property in perpetuity. And no one's going to grant the easement. We'd almost have to go right to the corner of their house. We had looked at the sightline on there. In regards to a traffic study, Yeah, whatever, the DOT does not care, it's an existing road. No matter what we do, DOT is not going to allow us to come to exit from here. No matter what we do over here, it's not going to change the sight line. We have to exit from here. So we could get traffic studies and they could say it's the worst sight line that they've ever seen. So short of appealing to some higher power at DOT or the commissioner, and the DOT, they already spoke to the commissioner of DOT. I think someone went to one of the state representatives, one of the state senators who's involved in this also, and they were going, what's going on with this project? Why has this not happened? Well, all they have to do is say the word safety, and the state is not going to get involved in a potential accident here based on one of their reports. So that's kind of where we are. So in order for my client to spend another $3,000-4,000 on a traffic study, number one, I know he doesn't want to do it. Number two, it's not going to show anything. All it's going to show is that it's a mess down there. And Jeff can speak to anything else he wants.
I guess.
We've explored it with the DOT. It's not their recommendation. Their position is we don't want you exiting from the property onto the Boston Post Road. That's why we're back here. Our preference would have been to use the existing driveway in and out. But as we shared with you and the public, the DOT doesn't weigh in on these situations until after we get an approval, which is why when we went to the neighborhood and told them what we wanted to do, we thought we could do it. That's why we're here today.
So, I want to see for the record what the DOT has said. Make it known to them. Secondarily, I would like to see you address what you can do to your northern neighbor to help him feel more comfortable with what you're trying to do. And thirdly, I would like to see you figure out what you can do, where you could relocate the possible entrance on the side that would satisfy the lovely woman that lives across the street, and see what we can do to mitigate the concerns of the neighbors that are showing.
We will be happy to reach out. We will be happy to reach out to the town engineer, discuss it with him or whoever the engineer is in their office and with the DOT to figure out a way that we can address this. But that is the unfortunate reality, is that we're going to have to come out on the Stonewall Lane if we want the cars to be exiting from this site.
So Erin, did you get the 2 points?
Yes, I did. And I guess my one question about the traffic, your traffic engineer looking at Stonewall Lane, I guess my concern is that there was never any sort of analysis at that point, at that intersection, as far as levels of service from this.
Yeah, well, I mean, they did address,
Exiting
they did address
here.
levels of service here.
But as far as on the town's road here, I mean, I guess that was, yes.
No, we didn't, you're right, we didn't look at that because
You didn't look at that.
because the plan was
Are there
originally
changes
to
to
seal,
that
to
service
seal
there?
that off.
Right.
And my point is, if there is, we can't change it.
Well, I
Well, there's
understand that,
nothing-
but
yeah.
if it's as big a mess as you say, and it's not, it's a safety issue, then it may not be an exit at all.
So,
I mean,
okay.
we're at that point now, right? We had
well,
one
that's
plan.
the owner bought that property expecting to use the
We all
property.
had that
And he can't just have people go there and leave their vehicles there.
Completely agree.
Well, I
completely
think-
agree.
Okay, so I don't know what the solution is then.
I don't either, but
Okay.
we can't put an exit there if it's gonna cause havoc on that corner, when people trying to make a turn. So we need to understand what we're getting into. I understand it's expensive. I understand it's not what we planned. I understand it's not what we want, but it's what we got, and we need to understand the facts behind all this so we can make the right decision. So I think there's 3 points. Now, whether we do the traffic survey now or after we have another assessment as to where that may go, and if that changes the flow, I don't know. But there's the traffic flow and basically where the exit can be along that road. And the third one is the light pollution caused by the cars on both the north and west, basically the whole area right there. That wasn't really an issue before, so we have.
Yeah, no, I Chuck my head out. I can certainly address commission members' comments about screening.
Right.
John Cunningham had mentioned the giant arborvitaes, whatever, the giant, whatever. They're mature trees, they're green year round. That's certainly an option up here. We can certainly explore moving this even, and that was a recommendation, the 150. So yes, we could move that to the south. Then you have the stacking and I know the grade is significant up here, so we could possibly eliminate the headlights. The one problem I do have is the egress.
I understand that, yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to know what we're getting ourselves into.
Okay.
That's all.
That's
I
right.
don't want to be on.
Now, is that a recommendation for you to approve this, or are you telling us the only way for us to get this approved is if we do a traffic study?
I'm not going to approve it unless I know there's not many accidents out there because of all these cars.
Okay.
I need someone who knows what they're talking about. to tell me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
Just like the state.
Yep.
I know even less than the state. Yes, ma'am.
It seems Johanna Berry, 33 Stonewall, sorry. It seems like there's a lot of property. Why can there not be an entrance and an exit? And if they need a little bridge over the wetlands or whatever, why can't it all happen on his property? He's got a lot.
And it is on his property, by the
I
way.
mean, on Boston Post,
Yeah,
this state law. They just said that.
and their reasoning is, I mean, the flattest spot and the least amount of curve is almost the dead center of his parking lot,
I understand.
headed out to Route 1. Best visual out of all three properties.
Yep.
Just saying,
I know.
okay,
That's what they said.
I just,
Yeah.
So we're in agreement.
it seems like there should be two, that they should be able to handle.
So the question on that, Nick Robinson, 16 Stonewall Lane. I mean, the previous property owner, I mean, while the Stonewall entrance or exit was available, it probably wasn't used as much as the main entrance. So the main entrance, the one entrance was pretty much used 80% of the time.
Yes.
And they allowed that. Is this because they're putting in a new driveway, that they're gonna have new state regulations? Because the previous Winter Club used that one driveway probably 80% of the time for both entrance and exit.
You could probably answer it better, but from my understanding, the state did the assessment of the safety
Gotcha.
parameters and they say it doesn't fly.
Okay.
Maybe it flew before, maybe they didn't catch it, don't know.
I mean, it probably
They
wasn't,
reassessed it.
checked for, 30 years ago. So, I mean, I'm sure there's new regulations that have come up with it.
So as far, I kind of understand, there's nothing as far as a grandfather that the DOT has to approve this new entrance exit on the Boston Post Road?
It was based on the change of use of the facility.
So the
So,
volume of traffic.
yes. That's how they got their hooks into us.
Any other questions? We have someone stand up.
Yes. Alex Province, if you can unmute yourself and identify yourself for the record.
Hi there, Alex Province, 917 Boston Post Road. This is a complicated situation, but I think at some point we've dragged the poor applicant through too much where I worry that the viability of being a business is at jeopardy. And I'm wondering if we can't approve it tonight with something suggesting that they work with the neighbors to shield the lights, they're probably not going to want to be looking at parking lots anyway. Can we not move forward tonight with a solution of an offering of some sort of future to be determined solution, even if it entails planting mature trees? If you talk to a landscape architect, they can plant using large vehicles, significant trees. So something like an ivy ground cover shouldn't be a problem, but get the owners sort of on commitment legally tonight that they will make every effort to shield them the lights, the parking lot, the building, all the stuff that they're not going to want to look at. My fear is, as I mentioned, if we don't approve it tonight, what's going to happen? We're going to drag this guy through, more months. DOT does not move quickly. Slowing the speed limit would be a great option, but that would take 6 months or a year to get the state to even move on that. So I think my overall point is the criticality of making a decision tonight. And if we were to deny it, who knows what happens to the owner? This guy has a restaurant, and perhaps decides he doesn't or can't, whatever, afford to move forward. And we might be looking at something much, much, much worse than a restaurant that we all sort of look forward to having. And I think to some point, none of us are ever happy with what disturbs us. I can speak personally to that, but at some point we have to find a solution tonight. I just worry that this is dragged on too long. Thank you for listening to my comment.
Thank you. Yes, please.
So just people to.
You're gonna have to enunciate.
Okay. Been in front of you almost 3 years. Initially, we spoke with the neighbors and they were very nice to walk. And we have exhausted everything. Every opportunity to get in and out from Boston also. I had told the state, a lot of people that I know were there, it's impossible. Come to safety, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get there. So the only place we can get out is in the town property, which unfortunately I own the property in this town. I'm paying taxes over a year now in this town without doing anything. I will do anything you guys want, including my scope with your wife, to extend the white fence.
No, I mean,
that's what you want to do.
No,
I will put white fence everywhere. I don't think it's gonna look good.
Agreement with you.
I don't think it's gonna look good. We're gonna put 6 foot, 8 foot green trees all around. It's gonna look good. That curve that Chuck is recommending is gonna be perfect. Nobody's gonna come the right-hand side, especially after 7:30, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock when they leave the restaurant. I don't see any other solution, so literally, we can go 1 more month, 2 more months, 3 more months, they're gonna come back to us. Nope. We have, I'm with the stone wall, the little stone that I start building the state probably 5 inches. And they said, nope, you have to break the wall and move the wall away 2 feet from our property. The wall that was already over there. Yeah. So it's impossible to talk to. So I will do anything you guys want. Anything you guys want. I'm not here to, but I cannot leave tonight without.
Worked hard at it.
I've been dragged for so long.
We understand.
Thank you.
If I could say one thing, we are, like Nick Robinson, so all, I'm absolutely willing to work with you to get this over the line. Like, I just want to, I wanted to make sure that, if I know there's issues with the DOT, if the DOT if the information given to the board here, that the council is, if that's the final word from the DOT, we certainly don't want to hold up the project. We want to find an amicable solution. We want to mitigate that. We also said that, a viable and successful restaurant is absolutely better than the alternative. So we understand that 100%. We don't want to hold up this project anymore. So, as the last presenter said, we definitely want to come up with a reasonable solution that's going to work not only for me and my wife, but the Leveronis, and then possibly, kind of a consortium of the rest of our neighborhood. I think, speaking to Ed, I think we could probably come up with a solution that's going to be acceptable to move this forward so that we don't have to be back here in a month or so and whatnot. So I'm willing to work with you guys, willing to work with you to get this going in a more kind of collaborative way. so that we don't have to waste time. So I mean, I think it's my duty to tell you like where we're at, but also like, I'm not here to block anything. I'm just saying like, hey, this is what we've got. But we, Cheryl across the street certainly has some issues, but I think if, the plantings and whatnot, like we find a way, if the DOT says, this is only your option, guys, like that's it. Like if that is their words, then that's what we'll do. The presenter's right. I mean, arguing with the DOT is gonna take another year and we don't want to do it, so.
All right, thank you.
You do have another meeting in 2 weeks. These plans were submitted to our office at 3:00 this afternoon.
Yeah.
With these suggestions and recommendations or these comments from DOT. I don't believe our engineering department has had an opportunity to look at the revisions onto a town road. So it would be my recommendation that the commission allow town staff to review the proposal if this is the location. And again, that also, it seems that the applicant is willing to work with the neighbors and the neighbors are willing to work with the applicant. So perhaps they can come up with a solution to present to you with a proposed, to address their concerns. The only other item is whether or not the commission is looking for, which could potentially take more than a couple of weeks, is comments from the traffic engineer regarding if they had to do counts or something like that. I don't know what they have on Stonewall. So that's something.
It would be a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks
we have to ask.
before we get a report from a traffic engineer.
What? I think
So
we'll be looking at.
you get feedback from our town engineer regarding.
Feedback from the town engineer.
Yeah,
It's not a traffic study I'm not as concerned about. But I really want to know what the town engineer says about it. Stonewall sounds like a worse solution than going right through the middle of the drive.
Yeah, let me just reiterate, these were not recommendations from DOT. Believe me, we fought them long and hard. And we went to the commissioner and they are adamant. So I can certainly get you a letter from Tracy May, the lead in this. Yes, for the record. Yes, absolutely.
The last piece that was raised by DOT in their letter was whether or not the town was looking to have any landscaping replaced within the state right of way that was removed. There was a significant oak tree that was removed within the right of way. I briefly talked about this at the last public hearing, and the commission decided to table that discussion to a later date. But if you have you're inclined to want to see any type of landscaping along that front, clearly not to obstruct any sightlines as they're limited anyways. That would require a licensing, some type of licensing agreement between the property owner and the state to maintain that landscaping. And prior to the state issuing any permits to the applicant, they're requiring notice from the town, the selectman's office verifying whether or not any plantings, any tree replacement is requested. And the selectman's office has requested that as the regulatory body of the site.
If I could just add to that, my understanding is that what you're talking about is replacement of plantings within the
Right
state,
of way.
within the state's right
Yes.
of way. There is a landscape design that was part of the master plan that's been approved by this commission, which we fully intend to comply with. So I'm not sure what benefit there would be to the town to require that there be additional plantings within the state right of way.
Right, and I'm not saying there is,
Right.
but that's something,
Point that
that's a
was
box that you have to check at some point.
Right. Well, if I can speak to that, I did get that letter from DOT. They said that the tree was taken down in error in anticipation of the sightline being done on there. So that was done. That was a mistake that shouldn't have happened, but it did happen. Because they did not want anything in the sightline. I wrote a letter to the first select woman explaining what happened. I needed a response from her stating that either since they have no real jurisdiction, DOT is happy to get everything out of the right of way. but trees need to be noticed to the town. So the first select woman has not responded. Her response was, if they want to plant trees, the state would require a maintenance agreement from the town, that the town would take care of that in perpetuity.
No,
We could.
I had a conversation with Tracy May on behalf of.
So I also spoke to Tracy, and when she told me that, we can certainly flip it to the owner.
Right, the town would not be maintaining any
But
trees.
no, but my point is, Aaron, that the town has no interest in maintaining it. They were asked to, and they have no interest, and that's why Aaron brought up the owner, and in perpetuity, it would have to be a deeded agreement that would run with the land. Because once you put landscaping in there, that would be a forever easement.
But I think the fundamental question is, does the town want a tree replanted within the state's right of way? And if this my hope would be that there wouldn't be anything to be gained from doing that beyond the scope of the landscaping my client's already committed to doing on the property. And so that if this commission, as part of any decision that you make with what we're discussing, says, and we've also considered the need to restore planting in the right of way, and don't think that it's necessary, given the other landscaping that's going to be done, make that part of it, then that may, we're trying to figure out the sequence of events to get everybody working, pulling the oars in the same direction. And that way, the town wouldn't need to say to the state, we want to have this, there wouldn't be a maintenance agreement between my client and the state. And for something that in all likelihood wouldn't really benefit either the town, its citizens, my client, or the state.
So if we get the input from the town engineer
For the
for next
driveway location.
driveway location, and if you all work with neighbors to come up with something, you can tell us in 2 weeks. This is along the lines of what an agreed compromise is to mitigate any light pollution, mitigate any other issues with the exit and where that exit is, based on the conversation with the town engineer. Then in 2 weeks, we have the opportunity to go.
Sooner the better.
You
Needs to
can,
be moved.
you can make a motion to continue the hearing. to
Right, continue the hearing to
6/22.
2 weeks. And then, but the intent to be, let's put you out of your misery and get this done.
It's gonna be a
Choice of
long
words.
meeting. It's gonna be a long
Would
meeting.
that be amenable to you good people?
That's,
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Nick, you're the main.
well,
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. I mean, I think
Mr. Chair.
I'm, I think the confirmation from you is, the existing driveway versus the driveway in the map is is the size and the positioning approximate of where it's gonna go, that's kind of one question. And then two, I think, checking with the Leveronis and the salmon colored house,
So, if I could just, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but you just got, you all can have that conversation.
perfect. That's fine.
You don't need us.
We don't.
We're not gonna add
I would request we be first on the agenda then.
We don't blame you.
Yeah, I think.
so's everyone else.
We're hopeful that,
I'll pass that on to Carol and.
Okay, thank you very much.
we're hopeful that in the interim, being first will mean we'll be very, very close.
Yes.
That's all.
Yeah, that would be the requirement.
Okay.
Thank you very much. But I think you need to.
Yeah, motion. Continue.
Continue.
Second on. Okay, all approved. Thank you.
And just a point of order was, so the next application, we can leave because you can't act on the site. plan.
Right.
So I can,
Correct.
I can go home.
Yes, that's not.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next.
It's application 24-13, 27 Green Hill Place and 43 Boston Post Road, petition for zone boundary change amendment.
Good evening.
Thanks for hanging in there.
Exactly. Thanks for hearing us. This is considerably, first of all, Chris McKeon, my office is 900 Chapel Street in New Haven. I represent the applicant. I also reside in Madison at 31 Hotchkiss Lane. This matter is considerably less complicated. Doesn't make it any less important than the other matters tonight, but With that, I will try to be very brief. I'm sure everyone would appreciate that. The applicant sitting right here is Bruce Beebe. He's also the owner of the 2 parcels that are the subject of the application. Bruce is a lifelong resident of Madison. He resides with his wife and son next to the East River on the Old Post Road. He currently owns and operates BD Marine. Many of you may know, the company that provides services for dock systems, mooring systems, other specialty marine work, serves many Madison residents. He is fully vested in this neighborhood. If you've been to the neighborhood, you would certainly see that. He's constantly making improvements for a better community. And perhaps most importantly, he is an avid and prolific runner. He has just completed his 111th marathon and his 26th Boston Marathon. Having run 4 myself, it's a number that defies logic to me. But in any event, we're here tonight seeking to change 2 parcels that Bruce owns from R2 to the C district. The first parcel is a small 0.15 acre parcel, which is map 44 lot 4 and known as 27 Green Hill Place. Aaron, I don't know if you can bring up the map that Tony had done, the zone change map. The second parcel is a portion of other property that Bruce owns. The stated address of the property is 43 Boston Post Road. It's map 44, lot 16. So this is 27 Green Hill Place here. That is its own tax parcel. And this portion is part of 43 Boston Post Road, the much larger parcel that for some reason this back portion is within the R2 zone, as is this. So the boundary line of the commercial district right now is this red line that goes like that. We're seeking to add these 2 parcels to the commercial district. This line right here, you can't read it, is I-95. And much of this land is wet. It's tidal wetlands, it's coastal resources, consistent with the business that Bruce operates in this area along the East River and has for quite some time.
Just give me a reference. Where's the restaurant located?
You want me to show you the aerial?
Yeah, Friends and
Would that be
Company's
helpful?
down here, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Yep, this is the cutoff. This is the Red Tomato Pizzeria. Okay. So this is 5.85 acres in the commercial zone. The portion we are requesting be changed to the commercial district is a 2.86 acre parcel. Again, the 27 Green Hill Place is 0.15 acres. There is a 2-family home down in the lower right-hand corner here on this larger parcel. This parcel currently has a single-family residence. I don't know if you've been by it, but I'm not sure how it's still standing. It is in very poor condition and needs to be demolished.
You didn't have it right now?
Raccoon, maybe. That's about it. You would
It's
want to
abandoned.
It's in rough shape.
So unlike the other applications tonight, your commission in a zone map change application such as this, you act in your legislative capacity as opposed to administrative. You have broad discretion to change your own regulations and your own map of zoning. We obviously filed our petition in accordance with section 17 of the regulations that allows us as an owner of property to apply for a change of the zoning map. Abutting property owners were notified. I believe in this particular zone, only abutting property owners within 150 feet need to be notified. But there is a discrepancy in our application that asks that we submit abutting property owners within 500 feet, which I'm not quite sure why. But owners within 500 feet were notified. So it was a much broader group of people, including the town of Guilford and residents of Guilford, were notified of this request. Obviously, the notices were published in the paper on the 2 prior Thursdays, as is required by statute, that statute being section 8-3. And we're here at this hearing within 65 days from when our application was received by your commission, and that was at the April 18th, 2024 meeting. So we've complied with the legal mechanism to get before you to ask for this zone change. In your legislative capacity, you need to make a determination of whether the zone change is in accordance with the comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan is different than the plan of conservation and development. It is what is embodied within your zoning regulations and the zoning map. That is the definition of a comprehensive plan. You also have to make the determination that our request is reasonably related to the town's normal police powers. And that essentially is your ability to control uses through zoning in town. In my statement of reasons, which hopefully you read, I tried to put my entire argument or petition in front of you in that statement. I would like to highlight it briefly. The first point I wanted to make is that the commercial district in our town, as you might have learned in the last several applications, it has some quirkiness to it, the C district. In fact, the only permitted use as of right in the C district in our town is a single family residence. So why are we asking that this be put into the C district when really all you can do as of right is a single family home, which is not what anybody who owns these properties would want to do here, if you know the neighborhood. So the key factor is that water dependent uses appears only in our regulations under the commercial district. Bruce's business is a water dependent use. His future plans for these properties are water dependent uses. And you have to consider this application without any particular development in mind. And we're not proposing any development tonight, but anybody who proposed a development on these parcels would have to, in addition to getting a special exception permit, would have to make a coastal site plan application. And a finding would need to be made under the CAM Act that's consistent with the goals and policies of the CAM Act and Section 25 of our regulations. One major component is the development interfering with water dependent uses? So that's sort of a circular way of saying that it is a natural, logical thing for these two parcels, which adjoin and abut the existing commercial district, to be changed to the C district. Again, you're not granting very much by doing that, other than allowing future special permit applications and future coastal site plan applications for water dependent uses, and of course, all the other uses that could be put under the commercial district. There has been a response from DEEP, which I think kind of addresses this sort of circular reasoning, and it's saying that, yes, this will further water dependent use applications on these properties, but you kind of need to be mindful of the fact that if you're going to get a development permit before you, there's water quality issues that have to be paid attention to. Of course there are. That's why there would need to be a special exception application and a coastal site plan application where those issues are addressed. Things like stormwater, septic, what type of use is actually occurring on the property, and whether it will harm the water or the environment, if and when we get there. So I think the DEEP response kind of reiterates our point that this is a natural extension of the C district. In fact, I think it's probably just left over as residential zoned property, perhaps even before 95 went through, because there's just no likelihood that someone's going to build single family residences here. So the last thing, and the statute requires you to do, is you have to pay attention to your plan of conservation and development. And were you to see fit to approve the application, you would have to find where it is consistent. And in my statement, I highlighted some sections of what is now the old POCD, I guess. But I believe the encouragement of water-dependent uses is well laid out in the plan of conservation and development just by virtue of where our town exists on Long Island Sound. No one better than Bruce could tell you that access for boaters to our town is something that he pays very much of his attention is paid to that. Boating continues to be a very important activity for our town. I think it's in many ways a reason why people come to Madison. But as my statement indicates, there are ample support in the plan of conservation and development for the encouragement of water-dependent uses. And with that, I would suggest to you that the proposed map amendment is in accordance with the comprehensive plan, specifically the commercial zoning district and its inclusion of water-dependent uses as one of the uses that a special exception could be sought. That the proposed zone change is designed to promote the health and general welfare of our town, and it's made with reasonable consideration as to the character of the proposed expanded C district and its particular uses, with a view to conserving the value of buildings and encouraging the most appropriate use of this particular area of town. I did today receive Erin's staff comments. I think I have highlighted just about everything that she had raised there. And I am happy to answer any questions you may have. One other thing I would point out is that our map and the legal description of the parcels that we're seeking the zone change for were in fact prepared by civil engineers Stevens and Associates. Chuck had to leave, but it's not really an engineering exercise here. We have clearly delineated the two parcels that we're seeking the zone change for. So with that, I'm happy to answer your questions.
Has been the response of the abutters.
I have not heard from any abutter, and it is not through lack of inquiring of Aaron and staff in town, as well as Bruce. I know the land trust is the largest owner of adjacent property. And I think, I don't want to speak for the land trust, but I think they're realizing that regardless of the zone here, they'll pay attention to what the next application may be, which is any development of the site. Because as we've said, it would have to entail a special exception and a CAM application.
So all the property to the northwest of these properties is land trust, right?
I can,
Get that map back up.
yeah, I can screech. Does that show?
Doesn't show the owners, but I know their property, and Bruce does as well. And Bruce had a discussion, I know, with Dave Roach of the Land Trust. They were fully aware of our application.
That was like the first step.
Right. Yeah, so this says right here on it, this is the Madison Conservation Land Trust parcel. So it's up here. Yeah, these three.
How about the property to the east of the site?
This is the Wallingford Group. I believe that's John Gavin's property. It's the old International Universities Press building. Yep, there's a house on the street and there's like a warehouse building in the back of this property. Yeah.
I wanted to see it. If they all approve, I got no problem.
We sent all the
think you have
notices
to-
out.
Yeah, well, yeah, we sent all the notices out. The evidence of mailing is part of the record. Yeah.
I think you have to take it, value what's presented at the hearing.
Were there any questions?
Wait. I'm still trying to figure out the process myself, so.
Yeah.
Just as long as everyone speaks up.
Yes, so now it's us. Does anyone wish to have questions? Questions, anyone? No? No, you may speak. Thank you.
Chris Ron, Frails Drive, here's for Boost personally, I know years ago, but also any development from
Chris,
small towns.
would you mind coming closer to the microphone here so that our clerk and everyone attending via Zoom can hear you?
Chris Ron, Allison Drive, here to support Boost personally, and then a few years ago, been not look good to me. Also any waterfront development, I believe benefits a small town. I do a lot myself in other areas of the country. I know it's hard to do, here to support. So thank you.
Thank you.
A long time.
And everybody,
Open that up to the,
yes, I don't see anyone online. Hands up.
anyone attending via Zoom. If you'd like to comment, please raise your hand. I don't see any.
Okay. All right, then, discussion? Yeah.
Same.
We have not heard from any of the abutters that they found this acceptable.
They're not gonna be acting until they figure out what's actually gonna be.
So isn't that appropriate they could do?
When they bring something forward, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I don't see how we can approve it tonight. Do we have?
We're having trouble hearing you.
I don't see how we can approve this until we have that information.
What information?
The abutters.
What
I
information?
don't think
are
what
you
information?
looking for?
I don't
You
think
sent
Mr.
out
Beebe could
an
come to us.
inquiry to the abutters.
No, it's notification. So as part of a hearing process, abutting property owners, and as Attorney McKeon indicated, any abutting property owner within a 500-foot radius of both properties were notified as required by the application, and a certificate of mailing was returned to the land use
Okay.
office indicating that's evidence that they were mailed. There's no further requirement in the application process of evidence of mailings beyond.
I would further submit that having complied with the notice requirements of publication in the source 2 weeks prior to tonight, mailing to more than the required number of people that were required to do. Frankly, if they are opposed to this request, it's incumbent upon them to come and voice their
So
opinion.
that's your point. is
Yeah.
They had opportunity.
Yeah, that, we complied with everything that we're supposed to.
Now I
That's what I was trying to suggest.
Now
I
I-
apologize if I was confusing.
We have
about that.
a
Okay.
hand raised.
Hand raised.
Maya Schofield. Maya, can you unmute yourself and identify yourself for the record, please?
Let's see. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Bruce. It's Maya. I see you when I'm walking the dogs all the time. I'm Maya. Yep, I'm Maya Schofield. I live at 37 Wildwood Avenue in Madison, part of the abutting properties that received the notifications in the mail, I think last week for this meeting. Thank you for sending them. I do think it's important as my property butts up against the wetlands, which is behind the East River development and the publishing company that they were talking about. We also see Petrillo's, and I do walk my dogs a lot around Bruce's property, and it's nice to wave at him at 5:30 in the morning. I just wanted to make sure I appreciated what the lawyer or representative said about why this would be moved to a commercial zoning, and that if there was any concerns, it would go to a different, I guess, planning department. I was just thinking about the positive impact that Bruce has had in our community, and wanted to continue or further our support of him as someone who is closer than the gentleman from Allison Drive.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So motion, motion to close the public hearing first. Yeah. Okay, motion, all in favor of closing the public hearing? Okay. Now, motion to approve. Okay, you want to introduce one?
I have a draft resolution, I can bring up for you.
I got it. Can I go?
Yes,
Voted.
go.
That the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission approve application 24-13-27 Greenhill Place in 43 Boston Post Road. Map 44, lots 4 and 16, zone R-2, applicant number Bruce C. Weeby. Petition for zone boundary change to amend the Madison zoning map designation from R2 residential to commercial C district based on the following findings. Selected parcels are adjacent to existing commercial district. 2, it is noted that all permitted uses except for single-family dwellings are by special exception district. One of these uses includes water-dependent uses. Current R2 district does not allow for water-dependent uses. The applicant has successfully demonstrated that the expansion of the commercial district to include the subject properties is consistent with the Madison zoning regulations, section 6, in which permitted uses within the C zone are identified, and section 19, which water-dependent uses are. Both of these parcels provide direct access to tidal waters, which will support commercial water. It is further noted that this proposal is consistent with the Madison Plan Conservation and Development, DOCD, as shown on page 24, water-dependent uses, specifically identifying the potential for recreational docking facilities. The plan further explains the need to expand coastal land access opportunities. Any future development of these parcels will be subject to section 25 Madison zoning regulations, coastal zone. The effective date of this approval shall be July 8, 2024.
Someone second it? I will second. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Definitely.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for hanging in there.
Thank you. Hope you cool down.
Oh,
You too.
That would be nice.
All right, Chris. Another thing too, thank you for volunteering.
Oh, thank you.
It's a tough job.
Appreciate
It's a
that.
tough job. Especially here it is, Board of Defendant.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you. Appreciate it for your great work.
You bet, take care.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pending applications. 51 Boston Post Road.
Yes, none of these require
Yeah, no action.
any action. Actually, you could table 24-16, 251 Boston Post Road. I think that was tabled to this evening, so
Yeah.
you can entertain a motion to table that to the 20th.
Okay, motion in favor of 20. Second. All in favor? Yes.
Each other application, Opening Hill Road is tabled, the public hearing is continued to June 20th. The petition for regulation text amendment from the Goddards is scheduled for June 20th. 159 Cottage Road is a site plan, coastal site plan application and site plan modification. That is also tabled to the 20th of this month. 26 Nathan's Lane is a public hearing scheduled for July 18th. You have one new receipt this evening, and the applicants are here remotely via Zoom to introduce you to the project. So I'm happy to move them over and promote them.
Good evening. Mr.
Marcia.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm Attorney Marjorie Shansky, and I represent the applicant for the detailed site plan review of the previously approved plan development district on the map 60 lot 18, the commercial development on New Road. We've submitted a complete application package that includes for the subject parcel, which is 2.731 acres, a proposed medical office building, 22,491 square feet. There are 116 parking spaces, including a loading space, 9 reserved spaces, 4 of which accommodate vans, and 106 parking spaces that are all shown on the site development plan. The commission may remember that a traffic study was provided at the time of the commission's approval of the PDD designation for both the north and south parcels on New Road. And we've also submitted architectural elevations and sections from John Wicko Architect. They have been working with ACA and have their next and hopefully final meeting next Monday, I believe, the 11th. John Cunningham is doing the landscaping, so we've given you a complete application package. This is detailed site plan review to implement the previously approved medical office building on New Road. Do you have any questions?
Question for the point?
When would, Marjorie, when would you like to have the team present at the next?
I know that the dance card.
Everybody here tonight.
I know that the dance card is quite full, but we would like to be on the agenda on the 20th of June. And it may be that something falls off of that agenda. I understand it's taxing for the commission, but that would be our preference.
I'm not here.
You're not here,
so
Steve.
You're on vacation.
I'll be zooming in. We have to do, there's so many other things.
We have opening hill.
You have a continuation of
Yeah, the
2 hearings. You have Opening Hill Road, and which is a lengthy application. You're starting an hour early. And then you have this follow-up of the PDD master plan modification for 251 Boston Post Road that it looks hopeful that should be a little quicker. And you have one new text amendment regarding setbacks in a farm district for farm stores. This is not a public hearing. The public
Just
hearing process went
okay.
through with the master plan approval. So this is the administrative site plan approval, as what they're proposing is consistent with the master plan that was vetted at the map
All right, I think-
amendment change.
I think
There should be some expedition associated with the fact that the site plan review.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Table to the 20th, was that the motion?
All right, those who will be in attendance, say go for it.
Well, the worst case is that we run out of time in the evening, so we try.
We want to set a time limit.
The meeting is set in the same structure as the previous, last month's, second meeting. So the meeting will begin at 6 o'clock, with the public hearings and, will end by 10 PM. There's a recess, at 8 o'clock, just a brief, stretch your legs, feel some fresh air perhaps. Okay, is there anything, well, I think the only item I am asking for, Marjorie, is the drainage report. I have not received a copy of that yet.
I understand, and Michael Harkin was showing that, I think, to the town engineer, and I will check with him tomorrow and make sure that it gets onto your desks.
Excellent. Okay, we'll see you next week at ACA.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, 2 administrative approvals.
So yes, and just very quickly, administrative approval is the responsibility of the CEO to notify you when a minor site plan modification is approved. There are parameters in the regulations that give that authority. It's of a certain size. And if it's exterior work, it has to go before ACTA first. So these two check those boxes. One's a gazebo at Concord Meadows, which is one of our largest, it is our largest affordable housing development in town to provide some outside space for residents. And the second is for the country school on Opening Hill Road, a replacement of a greenhouse that was damaged, as well as the installation of two prefabricated pavilions for where the children are waiting for bus pickup in inclement weather, or parent pickup, I should say. Can you just, who made the motion to table New Road? I'm sorry, Raquel didn't catch that. To table to the 20th, to the next meeting, Marjorie's application? You didn't?
Who did? I know.
Who did?
I think I may.
Bob O'Connor.
There's a Bob did.
Okay, and who seconded that? Mike Bugda did. Thank you, Raquel. Minutes.
For the May 16th, 2024 meeting of members present by heart, O'Connor, Snow, Bugda, Paul, Morgan, Lisa, and Downs. Is there a motion to approve? Michael, second? So, any comments or edits? It's a lengthy transcript. I didn't say anything that needs correction. Good to me. Vote to approve. Those in favor?
All in favor.
Thank you.
Favorite motion of the night? I have no other comments. Just quick attendance for next month. I know, Bob, you're out and Andy's out.
Zoom.
You're via
On
Zoom.
the 20th.
Yes,
Yeah.
on
I
the
can zoom
20th.
in. It will be by Zoom.
John said he was there.
I'll be here 20.
I thought you were,
Unless you need.
I might,
Don't have.
I might need you for a quorum.
I could change my plans, but.
So I will be in touch with you, but you may be on the hook. So tomorrow, Monday. Can I do that? I can email you tomorrow also. Okay, no other, yes,
Yeah, I'll be here.
thank you. Good.
Carol, will you on the 20th?
Carol will be
Yes.
back on the 20th to share, yes. Okay, motion,
Well, yeah, motion
Sure.
to close the meeting. So move. Second. All in favor? Sorry.